Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're listening to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from Monrovia, California, this is the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week, the college football analyst and I think GQ model, rocking his brand new sweatshirt that he was showing off, Josh Schaefer.
$20 at Costco.
Analyst, Lyle Goldstein. Our executive producer, Brady Klein, and I'm your host with the most, Blake Harris. Gentlemen, how's everyone's week doing? We're back live Tuesday for the first time in a few weeks now. It's been a few weeks since we've actually recorded on our normal Tuesday.
We got a great day for it, boys. It's a little brisk, but a clear. Get it out of the way. Let's get it out of the way early. But yeah, Blake, I've had this sweater for months. Wore it today for the first time. It's very soft. I look like a dude from a Hallmark Christmas movie, but it's fine. It's soft. Looking forward to it.
You see, some people like sweater weather, but the thing about sweater weather is you have to trade it off for it gets dark at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I don't know if I like 4 o'clock darkness.
Well, it's 8 o'clock here where I am. It's dark, and it is raining. So, I might just get up out of Indiana. Who knows? Let's see.
Most go to Arizona.
I'll just go to Arizona tomorrow. Why not?
You should get out of Indiana. Yeah, it's about 55 outside, and I don't know how to handle that. I need to figure out where my sweatshirts are because I'm not prepared for that. All right, guys, we have a jam-packed show as we do every week.
Wait, what was the high there today where you were at?
I think it was like 59 or 60, I want to say.
Oh, it was 72 degrees today.
I'm here. Actually, no, it says it's 63. Or it says it's 63 right now, but I don't believe that. So.
Oh, I thought he meant like you went somewhere and it was 60 degrees. Yeah, it's 60 degrees.
That's like 75 here in Indiana.
All right, so we got a jam-packed show coming for you guys. It's going to be a fun one because we're going to be talking about some things that happened this past weekend. But since last week's show was kind of limited on time, we couldn't do a Q&A whatsoever. This week, we're going to be having a bigger Q&A. So later in the show, more questions, more answers, but also in regards to just anything you guys want us to talk about. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Q&A question. It could be a game this past weekend. It could be a player. You guys can help us out. You guys can donate to the Super Chat. That way we can see your comments and you guys can, pretty much choose what we talk about because we're still going to have our stars of the week, Uni Watch, all that kind of stuff. But more time this week to talk about stuff you guys want to hear. So again, if you have any interest in that, later in the show when we get to that, again, it could be $1, $2, $5, however much you want. You guys can choose the topics we discuss. I just saw a comment I want to see if I can find it. Here we go. Can we ask unrelated college football questions? Later in the show, Ostex the Dude. Yes, when we get to the Q&A, you can ask unrelated college football questions. You actually get a higher chance of having those answered because we get the same questions over and over. But if you have something that catches our eye, you have a pretty solid chance of having that question answered. So again, it's going to be a super fun show. Going to be a whole lot of fun. I'm trying to get the banners right now, but you guys can follow us on Twitter at the HH Show _. Follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. All that kind of stuff. And as I said, you guys can support the show by donating to the super chat. So later in 15 minutes or so, when we're talking about some other stuff, again, if there's anything out there you'd like to hear our thoughts on, hit us up over there. Again, it could be as little as $1, and we'll be sharing our thoughts on that. What do we got right here? DB Klein wants to know, why is Lyle blurred out? Is he in a witness protection program?
Blurred out?
Yeah, dude, your quality's super lowy. Your quality.
Well, considering your father was Bill Gates' secondhand man, I thought you'd be able to afford better Wi-Fi, but I guess not.
Guess not. I don't know. I had this problem earlier too.
Maybe.
Oh, dude. So unfortunately, Lyle's quality is going to be a little bad. But guys, let's get things underway here and talk about the biggest takeaways from Week 10. And if we're going to have a takeaway from Week 10, it's going to be the fact that I called it on the show last week, but for whatever reason, I didn't bet on it, and it cost me big in my parlay. Clemson, Notre Dame. Last week on the show, guys, when we were doing our pick'ems, I ended up going with Notre Dame because I said, Clemson, you're not a great team because good teams win, great teams cover.
That's
and
true.
I think I went back and I looked. Clemson is like 2-4, 2-5 against the spread this year, so they're not that great. And I ended up picking Notre Dame. Notre Dame wins a thrilling game in overtime. Lyle, the biggest Notre Dame fan we know, said take Clemson with the points because he was confident Notre Dame wouldn't show up. We've seen it in years past. Ian Book, Notre Dame, they win a lot of games, but when they're put on the big stage, when they have to play the best teams out there, they fold. And they didn't fold this weekend. So, guys, I guess, Lyle, will throw it to you because I want to hear your thoughts on Notre Dame playing essentially the best game they've probably played, like, I don't know, the last decade maybe easily. I mean, this was a fantastic game from Notre Dame.
I'll keep this to about a minute because there's a lot to unwrap in this game, and I'm sure everybody has their 2 cents. I'll stick on 2 Clemson points here quick. Number one, when I gave that star of the week to DJ Uiagalelei weeks back, saying there's a chance him and Trevor Lawrence will both be number 1 picks and sat in the same quarterback room, after what we saw on Saturday, I feel pretty good about that take. That guy was slinging it all over the field. He was so good, despite Clemson losing. He was incredibly, incredibly impressive. Number 2, it's pretty clear Clemson, for all the good receivers they pumped out over the years, have another really good one in Cornell Powell. Amari Rodgers is good in the slot. Don't get me wrong. He had a huge game too. But for a guy that's big, can take the top off a defense, can beat people deep, Powell's that guy. And Notre Dame's defense is really good, and Powell just beat him a couple times on Saturday. For Notre Dame, I've got to give credit to Ian Book. I'm not exactly an Ian Book stan. People on this show know that. But you know what? Credit where credit's due. Outside of that one really bad fumble, he played a really good game. He kept him in the game. He minimized mistakes, and he did what he needed to do in overtime too. I didn't really have much faith he was going to march him down the field on that last drive. He did that. He made a really nice downfield throw, and then he capped it off with a touchdown. And then I got to give credit to Brian Kelly too, or people I think should give credit to Brian Kelly, because again, his kind of aura and his legacy over the last 10 years is he doesn't really win big games despite pumping out a lot of NFL talent and bringing in good recruits. Not only did he win a big game, but I think he executed a game plan here, because clearly the game plan was prevent Travis Etienne from beating you in the run game. They did that. Etienne had 28 yards of rushing, and they put it all on Uiagalelei. And as good as he was, he probably wasn't as crisp as Trevor Lawrence. So credit to Book, credit to Kelly. I'll throw it to you guys because there's a lot to unwrap.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Lyle. The first thing that stands out to me is Ian Book. undefeated at home as a starter, but still we've talked about it time and time again. It doesn't seem to show up in big games. And not only does he show up, but he completely limited mistakes. He showed his leadership qualities. And then when it comes down to the game plan, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a game where Brian Kelly knew who the biggest threat was going in, and it wasn't DJ with Trevor Lawrence out. It was ETN and the running game and what they were going to do to move the ball down the field, and the proven talent and everything about that offense going into the game for me was Travis Etienne in the run game and the offensive line. And they took that out of the equation, made DJ Uiagalelei throw the ball. And all right, so he puts up 40 points and he throws for 400 yards and a couple touchdowns. Like, he's a freshman and they put the pressure on him and he delivered. They just didn't get the win. I'm also going to completely reject any argument about Trevor Lawrence playing and winning the game for Clemson. I think that's garbage. I think Trevor Lawrence is a fantastic player. But again, DJ Uiagalelei threw for 400 yards as a true freshman. I don't think the only argument I think you can make is that maybe Trevor Lawrence balances and handles the overtime pressure a little bit better. Maybe he doesn't get sacked like that. Maybe he makes a pass or two in overtime. I still think that's a stretch. I think DJ was very good in this game. And the fact of the matter is that Clemson got beat. And what it comes down to is not the game plan from Brian Kelly for me, not even Ian Book. It's the fact that Notre Dame was so good offensively. They scored 47 points on the number one team in the country. It doesn't matter who you are. If you give up 40 points in a game, you're not going to win. Clemson's done this. Clemson has given up more than 40 points in a game 6 times since 2013. 6 times in 7 years, which is a pretty insane margin. That just shows how good they've been defensively. Since 2013, 6 times giving up 40 points. 51-14 loss to Florida State. 45-21 loss to Georgia. 45-40 loss in Natty to Bama. 43-42 loss to Pitt. That was the big upset a few years ago. 42-25 loss in the national championship to LSU. And then 47-40 loss to Notre Dame. They have not won a game when giving up 40 points in the last 7 years. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're giving up 40 points in a game, you're not going to win. And you're not going to win consistently.
I will say this. This game with DJ we saw was everything we expected it and hoped it to be. It's the best thing we could have wished for this young freshman, for this Clemson team with, the question mark of losing some guys, losing in the national championship last year, with a quarterback getting COVID and being out. Trevor Lawrence, I hate to say this, but him being out 2 games is the best thing that's going to happen to the Clemson program this year, because he gets to sit on the sideline and purely focus on saying, hey, DJ, here's how I'm going to help you. And so for 2 weeks straight, Trevor Lawrence and DJ have been sitting there together in the same room, or in different rooms, but the same virtual room, if you want to call it. And Trevor Lawrence has been a coach. He was on the sideline. You saw him in the huddle. You saw him talking with DJ, with Dabo, all these guys on the sideline. And it was the best thing for Clemson future-wise that could happen to them. I will say this. DJ has the same amount of 400-yard passing games as Trevor Lawrence. DJ did it in 2 starts. That is 1 game. That is 1 game of over 400 passing yards. Granted, a lot of the Clemson ones in years past, he's been taken out at the end of the third quarter. He hasn't eclipsed that 400-yard mark. But what we saw from DJ Uiagalelei was impressive, and it's the best game, hands down, the USA Network has ever seen.
Yes.
I mean, think about this. I was thinking about regular season college football games just as a whole. When was the last time we had a regular season game this good? I was trying to date back a couple of years. I don't know. I mean, that one, double overtime, 1 versus 4.
Right.
I mean, there's got to be one before the kick 6, but I mean, 12.5 million people tuned in for that one. That was pretty good.
Yeah, and especially
the games on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that too.
Yeah,
I mean, NBC is probably just going like, "Yes, this is exactly what we love to see." I mean, it was
and then they got a rating spike with the presidential speech too.
Right, they knew what they were doing because they were saying at 5:00 directly. Then all of a sudden, think about how many people were tuning in to watch the speech when they were watching the Notre Dame game instead, because it didn't start for like 30 minutes. But I mean, overall, like it was an absolutely fantastic game. I mean, I've recovered after losing my big parlay, so it's okay. But looking back at, I mean, Notre Dame, they had had so many things just go their way. Now, granted, I know Clemson, they were down, I think, 3 key players on defense. I know they were missing some guys, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse because Notre Dame simply played better. Now, I know that I think Travis Etienne had the fumble that was recovered for the touchdown, so that was huge. And then, like, the following drive, there was that Clemson fumble. When you guys saw that fumble, did it remind you of that Ohio State Clemson playoff one that, what was it? It didn't go or went Clemson's way last year because I think Ohio State housed it for a touchdown, then it was called back. And this year it didn't go Clemson's way, so I thought that was kind of ironic. I mean, Clemson, they were in the game. They gave themselves a fine opportunity to win. My biggest takeaway was, again, that Lyle hit it perfectly. The fact that Notre Dame took Travis Etienne completely out of the game. Watching the game, I know he got the touchdown late. He was super involved in the pass game like crazy. I didn't realize that he had 28 rushing yards and 18 carries. Like, I thought he was having a decent game, but I didn't realize that Notre Dame held him in check so well. And the crazy thing is, too, you look at Ian Book's numbers. Ian Book seemed like he was playing fantastic for the most part. He did have that fumble, like, on the 5-yard line that kind of cost them. But when you see this game and you say, like, give me a guesstimate on what Ian Book's stat line was, 310 yards and 1 touchdown? That's not even a testament to how good he looked. And again, everything went right for Notre Dame. We are going to talk about it later in the show as regards to teams, how they're going to, what their chances are of making the college football playoff. But I mean, Notre Dame, I think they proved to the entire country that they're legit. They're a legitimate team in college football this season. I
will say this quickly. You said this is the best regular season game since when? Well, last year, I mean, we saw LSU Bama 1 versus 2 finish 46-41. So,
but also Alabama or LSU, I already forgot.
LSU won, but they were up big for most of that game.
They were up big. Alabama came back, and I also missed that entire game, so I never even saw it because we were at the at that. So, Clemson, Notre Dame. Guys, do you have any more takeaways, notables? Because, again, we're going to be talking about Clemson, Notre Dame later in the show when we get to college football playoff and teams, what they need to do happen to reach the playoff. But any more things you really want to mention from this game, aside, again, from the fact that Clemson has a really good quarterback for when Trevor Lawrence leaves next year?
I'm amazed Brent Venables is still a defensive coordinator.
They just pay him so much money, he won't leave. I mean, they pay him more money than most head coaches would make.
And his son's the starting middle linebacker, so I'm guessing that's probably a reason of it too.
He's like when you play NCAA 14 Dynasty mode, but start as a coordinator, and you're only the coordinator because you don't want to play the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
True. So yeah, my only other takeaway is this probably won't be the last time these two teams see each other. So we'll get round 2 of this.
Tony Dungy thinks they're going to be playing three more times somehow. I don't know about that, but
as long as the whole team doesn't get COVID.
If you guys are tuning in right now, we're going to be talking about a lot of college football. But if there's a game from this past weekend you'd like to hear our thoughts on, a player you'd like to hear our thoughts on, an upcoming matchup, or just anything going on in the college football world, whether it's a team competing in the conference, a team competing for a college football playoff spot, you guys can donate to the super chat. Could be $1, could be $2, could be $5, however much you want, because we got a lot of comments going on right now. We got about 40, 50 comments going per minute, so we're missing a lot. This way you donate, it comes up in a nice shiny color and we're able to see it, and we can read your guys' stuff. So again, if there's anything you'd like to hear our thoughts on, you guys can help us out in the super chat. Helps us all continue to do the show on a week-to-week basis, and again, it helps us interact with you guys more as to what you guys would like to say. And this comes in perfectly from our guy Steven Smith. I know we missed one from him last week. I think right when the show was ending, we got one from him, I think, on Breeze Hall. But he says, who do you think will win the Big 12 championship, with Oklahoma and Texas making a resurgence in the race with Oklahoma State and Iowa State tied for first? Now, that's a good one. The Big 12 is completely up for grabs at this point. I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah, and so that's from Steven Smith, and his YouTube profile photo is a red and yellow Big 12 logo. So that's Iowa State, if I've ever seen it. I'm going to be honest. I was just getting into it. I don't think Iowa State has it moving forward. I think they're good enough to compete with anybody in the Big 12, but the longevity, when it comes down to the longevity of it, honestly, I think Oklahoma makes a push, but I'm going to stick with Oklahoma State. That was my preseason pick. My preseason hot take a couple months ago was Oklahoma was going to lose 3 games, and I'm just not feeling Texas either. Texas has continued to be inconsistent, so I'm going to stick with Oklahoma State for now, but I think Iowa State and Oklahoma do make a late push.
I had to tweet this out on our show's account the other night when I saw the Skip Bayless tweet that said the best team in the country right now, or whatever it is Oklahoma. It's like, buddy, they beat winless Kansas. Like, what are we talking about here?
They did cover, though, Lyle. they did cover the 38-point spread, so they are a great team.
Oh, that's true.
That's got to be one of the first teams to cover a major spread like that this year, because we've seen a lot of them come close.
Marshall, they were 4 points away from covering their 45-point spread against UMass.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go with Oklahoma State wins the Big 12. I say they beat Texas in the title game.
Yeah. I mean, I just got the standings up right now. So it's Iowa State, they're 5-1. Oklahoma State's 4-1. Oklahoma 4-2. Texas 4-2. Kansas State 4-2. And as you guys know, it's just top 2 teams get in. Doesn't have to do anything with, there's no divisions in there. So Iowa State, they're in a comfortable position right now, considering they're at 5-1. And it'll be interesting between Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Texas. But as of right now, I think I got to give the edge to Oklahoma State. They've been playing so well. If it wasn't for that overtime loss to Texas, what was it, last week, they'd be undefeated and they'd be making a push to the college football playoff. Obviously, anything can happen. The fact that Kansas State is still in it, who knows? But I think right now the safe bet is that it's going to be those 2 teams. But again, shout out, I think, because again, Stephen Smith asked us this last week, literally right as we ended the show. Breece Hall, I just did a Heisman top 5 video where I included Travis Etienne in my top 5. That was before I looked at how awful Etienne's numbers were this past weekend and how good Breece Hall's been. I think he was a star for Josh, I want to say, like a week or 2 ago. This dude's been absolutely unreal. He leads college football in rushing yards by 200, double-digit touchdowns. So Breece Hall, we talk about Brock Purdy, we talk about Iowa State. He's, again, quietly been the best running back in the entire country. All right, guys, moving on to our next topic before we get to your guys' comments. Also, shout out again to Steven for the donation. You guys can ask us a question, donate in the super chat below. The Pac-12, it's officially back. We had it's amazing because we had the ASU USC game at 9 a.m., which I was totally against. Guys, I'm sold. I am down for the 9 a.m. Pac-12 action. I thought it was great, but so many people, especially like Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson, were saying how fantastic this is for the Pac-12 because and Joel Klatt, he was completely honest about it. He's like, people talk about Pac-12 after dark. That's just a Twitter hashtag. That's just like a Twitter meme that people like to say. No one's watching these games unless you have rooting interest. I know Brady, I'm sure, because he's always up till 1 or 2 a.m. He probably watches them anyway, but the average college football fan, they're not up at midnight or 1 a.m. watching Washington State, Oregon State. They're just not. I thought this was great having a good matchup early on in the morning. And everyone, especially what I saw on Twitter, they were all saying, this is great. We get to see early Pac-12 action. And I think it's really going to help the Pac-12 moving forward. So I just wanted to say that about the early Pac-12 games. Do you guys like the 9 a.m. schedule? I know for Brady, it doesn't make a difference because it's noon for him. But I know for Lyle and Josh, it's a 9 a.m. kickoff for you guys.
I want to say one thing really quickly. Where was this when Christian McCaffrey was in the Heisman contention?
Oh,
Where was
that should not have mattered. He should have won the Heisman anyway.
Exactly. The year they won, or the year that Henry won, Alabama had 8 primetime nationally televised games. Stanford had 3.
It's insane. Every time, so my father is not the biggest NFL fan on the planet. He'll kind of just sit there whenever I'm watching a game because I've got games on all day Sunday. And obviously, McCaffrey came back this week. My dad sits down on the couch. First thing he says when he sees McCaffrey is, "Remember when he got robbed from a Heisman Trophy?" Ridiculous.
Gosh. It's fantastic. So before we move on, 2 things. One, Eli, our man coming in with the question. This is actually going to be perfect. So Eli, in about, I think in 15, 20 minutes, we're going to be talking about 10 or 15 teams and whether or not they actually have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. And I think we're going to be talking about Auburn. So since that's going to be a topic for later in the show, we'll make sure we get to that first thing when we bring that up in 10 or so minutes. But again, thanks for the donation, Eli. You're the man. Hey, Josh, we got our man Just Bombs in here saying fight on. So why don't we lead with that? Why don't we fight on? ASU played USC in the opening 9 a.m. game. It was a fantastic game. ASU was the better team for the first 57 minutes. Then SC just went into high gear. They played how I think a lot of people expected them to play for those final 3 minutes. You can go either way. You could say ASU lost the game, but you can also say USC won the game. So we'll go to Lyle first because I know Josh, he was very active in the group chat. He'll share his things last. But Lyle, what were just your overall thoughts from ASU's opening action and USC's opening action for week 1?
Okay, tell me if I'm late to the party on this, or you guys already knew this, but ASU's special teams coach, Sean Slocum, okay, obviously how the game went, ASU didn't recover the onside kick, SC came back, SC won the game. Did anybody else know that before taking the special teams job at ASU, He was the Green Bay Packers special teams coach in 2014 and 2015 when he was basically responsible for Brandon Bostic like missing that onside kick, which led to the Seahawks like coming back and winning the NFC Championship game. Did anybody else know that?
I knew
did
he was
not.
a coach. I just didn't know he was at that time.
Yeah.
How does that happen twice? Okay, so before we get to that that play, look, we know USC is a good team. I don't want to take anything away from SC. Okay, Slovis got off to a little bit of a slow start. When it all came down to it, he still had a pretty nice game. He made plays when it mattered at the end, and he still threw for almost 400 yards. Look, it's as simple as this for ASU. Like, Jaden Daniels did not have a great game. The running game, which was a big question for us, was great. DeMonte Traynham looks like an absolute monster. You got to recover the onside kick. Like, we're not sitting here talking about anything else if you just recover the onside kick. That's what it comes down to. I mean, they were up 2 scores with 5 minutes to go. SC put together a nice drive. Onside kick's upcoming, and you just muff it. That like, their win percentage was at 99.8% at one point in that game. Like, that was an Atlanta Falcons level choke job. It's as simple as this. You have to recover an onside kick and just fall on that football. They couldn't do it. SC won the game.
The one thing about the onside kick that I went back and watched it a couple times is you had like 6 guys on your front line right there and only 2 guys on your back line. It should be either even or overloaded on, or at least have 4 guys on your back line, because if the ball for whatever reason gets through, you want everyone to get on the ball and get on the pile and hold that ball. Front line was just like, Ole, here you go. Like, take the ball. And that's what it was. So I don't know if it was, poor execution, misunderstanding, bad alignment, whatever it was, but it was a bad play. This ASU team, I think they have really good promise. Like Lyle said, the running back duo that ASU has is going to be one of the best in the Pac-12. And I think they already could be. And not having Frank Darby was a big thing in this game. It wasn't a deciding factor in the game. However, receivers did drop some balls, but it was pretty inconsistent all around. The ASU defense played 57 great minutes of football. I will say that. The special teams unit played great. Robinson could be a first or second round pick when it comes to his time to leave ASU. I think that.
Yeah. All I have to add before Josh goes is the fact that Joel Klatt was literally thinking that Jack Jones is like the best lockdown defender he's ever seen. The praise he was giving him, that was fantastic. But Brady, you said the best running back duo in the Pac-12. I think they have a chance to be the best running back duo in the entire country. I mean, granted, it's been one game. Who knows what we can see? But I mean, that's my takeaway is those two. And I think you said it last week, Brady, was that ASU was like the only team in the entire country that had their entire running back core with no experience.
Yeah, it was the only team in the country with a travel roster that featured 0 starts or carries at the D1 level at running back.
Yeah, and they did not look like it was. I mean, it didn't look like it was their first, D1 FBS game on the road to USC. They were fantastic. Jaden Daniels, the fact that he had 100+ rushing yards was outstanding, because I don't think he cracked 100 yards once last year in the rushing game. Maybe he did. I just don't recall him running, especially like that. Again, he underthrew some guys. The offensive line looked absolutely ridiculous. But again, although ASU lost the game, you have to be at least somewhat excited for what you saw from them, because a lot of people, they were 11-point underdogs. Me personally, I said that's my one bet of the week, where I don't think ASU is going to lose by 11. I think they'll keep it close. But again, this is a team that's been slept on. They're not going to be competing for a championship this year, but it kind of sucks, especially this year in the Pac-12, because there's only 6 games. So essentially ASU has to go undefeated. SC now has to lose 2 games for ASU to overtake them and be in the Pac-12 title game. Next year is going to be a fun one in Tempe, I'll tell you that, because this is going to be a fun ASU team. But Josh, you are more of a USC, ASU, eyes on both sides type. So tell us what you saw from ASU, but tell us also what you saw from SC, how they looked pretty much awful in the first 57 minutes, but those final 3 minutes was the SC team that I think we're expecting to see this year.
Really quickly, Josh, can I jump in for 1 second? Blake, the point you brought up a second ago is Jaden Daniels is only the second ASU quarterback to rush for over 110 yards since 1980. So it's something that's very rarely done, and he showed extreme versatility in that game. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, and we talked after the game, and I know that you guys initially thought that Jaden was a little bit underwhelming. I thought that Jaden was good. I think, like you guys mentioned, having Frank Darby out of this game is not it doesn't change the outcome of the game, but it is a difference maker because suddenly Jaden Daniels is without his star senior receiver who is expected to come in and be a leader this year, and he's got a receiving core of a bunch of freshmen like Johnny Wilson who dropped 4 passes in this game, like LV Bunkley Shelton who was getting his touches, but again, a lot of them were underneath routes because he's a young guy too. They had to get 2 different running backs into the passing game. So ultimately, like I think that missing Frank Darby was an issue. I don't think it's going to be an issue moving forward. Ultimately, ASU should have won the game. And I think that Jaden was pretty good. He missed a couple of throws on that last drive. He missed the one play to, I think it was Jordan Porter, who couldn't keep a foot down. And that was a bad throw. And then the last throw to LV Bunkley Shelton was a bad throw too. Other than that, I thought Jaden played well. And then look, I tweeted this too. That's a crushing way to lose a football game. I mean, that was the end result I thought we were going to get. It did not come through the path I thought it was going to take to get there at all. But it's a crushing way to lose a football game. I'm still very, very excited about this ASU team moving forward, both offensively and defensively. But look, did you really expect Keaton Slovis, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, and Tyler Vaughns to be quiet for 60 minutes? Like, it was only a matter of time until they woke up. It was nice to see Brew McCoy get involved a little bit. Malapei and Carr were
Brew McCoy, right place, right time.
Right place, right time.
Involved.
I think it was a little bit of I think Amon-Ra St. Brown knew he wasn't coming up with that football. And I think it was kind of like keep the play alive. And
or make sure ASU doesn't pick it.
Exactly. And you're right. Brew McCoy was in the right place at the right time. But it was a smart play. Yeah. Throw it up on a free play. Why not? I mean, I thought Slovis was impressive. He should have been picked off twice, though, and I think that's just credit to ASU's defense. Merlin Robertson was all over the place, nearly had that onside kick. He probably should have had it, but SC came up with it. And then he had a diving interception that was probably bound to be a completed pass, and he just made a good read on it. So I'm excited about ASU moving forward. I'm really excited about USC, and it was a tough game to watch. You guys know how I am going to ASU, growing up watching SC. It was a tough game to watch, especially at 9 a.m. because, like Blake mentioned, I'm so in for 9 a.m. kickoffs in the Pac-12 if I've got either USC or ASU playing later, because I had both of them at 9 a.m. and then the rest of the day was like, all right, well, I guess I can watch that. But I wasn't looking forward to anything outside of that Clemson Notre Dame game. But I'm excited about both teams. Both teams I think are going to be really good. And we'll see what we get. But now suddenly with a tough loss like that, this next game against Cal for ASU, Cal had their first game canceled. They had COVID issues. If for some reason ASU doesn't play this week, I think their season is pretty much over in terms of what they can accomplish. Like, ASU needs to play a football game this week against Cal at home after losing the way they did to USC last week. This is a must, not necessarily a must win. Like, this is a must play game for ASU.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, like, as I mentioned, just if they even want to be in the Pac-12 title game, they got to go undefeated, and SC has to lose 2 games. That's just because that's how crazy things are. But again, like you said, with such little games, if all of a sudden they lose, one of those games, especially against a team like Cal, who a lot of people think is going to be legit, that can really, really hurt ASU. They want to play again. They want to play as soon as possible to get the sour taste out of their mouth, which is why when we get to Blake Spetz, I'll mention why I absolutely love ASU -4. But before we get to some other Pac-12 notable things, Brady, I'll cut you off before. We have our man Red, Blue, Purple coming in. Hey guys, first time watcher. Well, what an episode to crack in for your first episode. How's it going, Red, Blue, Purple? Welcome. Should the college football awards be moved until after bowl season is finished? Also, who's a Heisman winner who would lose theirs if it was implemented years ago? So we got kind of like a twofer here.
That's tough. Maybe who's somebody that would lose it. I don't know about Jameis. I don't know about Derrick Henry. Here's a hot take for you, and I think that he absolutely deserved it. But if we're switching the awards until after the season, hear me out. I'm going to surprise you with this one. Reggie Bush. Because if that gets pushed until after the season, you have Reggie make a couple of big-time mistakes in that championship game. And remember who was a finalist and didn't win? It was Vince Young, who came up and had a fantastic game at the Rose Bowl and then scored the winning touchdown with no time on the clock. So I think Reggie still wins it. but I think that's something to consider. I still think Reggie wins it, though.
Well, first off, red, blue, purple. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. I would keep the awards where they are, just because that's how all the other sports do it too. You don't usually do awards after the postseason. It's always judged upon for what you did in the regular season. But if you had to pick somebody that would lose their Heisman if it was after the regular season, maybe Lamar. He got off to such a hot start in his Heisman campaign. He cooled off a little bit toward the end, and I figured they still gave it to him because he had such a great body of work as a whole, but those last handful of games he didn't play as well, where if it was decided at the end of the season, where after the national championship concludes, maybe somebody else gets it, maybe Deshaun Watson gets it or somebody like that.
Yeah, I said, possibly Jameis that 2013 year. I think it was just sort of a weird year in general for him. And what were they? Would they finish ranked like third, fourth that year?
Well, didn't he win the Heisman the year they won the national title, or did he? Right,
he won in 13.
Yeah, I think Florida State won that year. You might be thinking of the next year when they lost to Oregon, where he had the really bad fumble. Right?
Yeah. I got my years mixed up. 13 national championship was Notre Dame, Bama. So beginning, end of year, end of year. Just move on.
There you go. So that was a fun one, guys. So our next thing we were going to bring up, I think Brady had something you wanted to say before we talk about some other things. To briefly mention before I go to what you guys want to hear about in regards to takeaways from the weekend. I guess the only notable thing I want to mention is Oregon. They did what Oregon was supposed to do. Tyler Shuck looked pretty good from the first game I saw from him. But aside from that, I mean, Colorado, a close one against UCLA. Washington State, Oregon State was a fun one. I think I'll have Josh share his quick takeaway from that one. But anything from the Oregon game you guys want to mention, or just Oregon? They stomped Stanford. No surprise. Uniforms were awesome as always, except according to Josh. But I want to hear what Josh has to say in regards to the Washington State, Oregon State. Before again we move to your guys' takeaways from the past week in college football.
So am I starting with Washington State?
Yeah.
We're starting with.
All right. Jaden DeLaura, true freshman quarterback for Washington State, is the reincarnation of Connor Holiday, of Gardner Minshew, and Anthony Gordon. And he comes out of St. Louis High School in Hawaii. It's a Hawaii high school football powerhouse, same school that Jeremiah Masoli went to, Tua Tagovailoa, Marcus Mariota. This is a big-time D1 college football pipeline, especially for quarterbacks. He's the most recent product out of St. Louis High School, the Crusaders in Honolulu, and this guy is legitimately the same Washington State quarterback we've seen the last 4, 5, 6 years, outside of Luke Falk, who was a big, burly pocket passer. So outside of him, I think Jaden DeLaura is Anthony Gordon, Gardner Minshew, Connor Holiday, and he's good. I mean, his stats aren't going to jump out at you against Oregon State this past weekend, but he's got some big play capabilities, and I'll use this to feed into my Oregon thoughts. Look for Jaden DeLaura to have a good game against Oregon this week. I won't make my pick 'em now, but we talked about this last week. Oregon is without 3 of their 4 starting defensive backs, returning from a Rose Bowl winning season to a year where they were hoping to play in a national championship game, and they lost 3 of their starting 4 defensive backs because they opted out of the season. And that includes Holland. It includes Breeze. These are big-time losses for the Ducks. And despite eventually really pulling away from Stanford, they showed that they could give up some chunk yardage on some big plays. So I don't think this is going to be the same Oregon defense that has completely smothered teams in the past. I don't think they're going to be as dominant. The offense is going to be good. Tyler Shuck is going to be good. CJ Verdell, watch the offense be good. It took them a little while to get going against Stanford, but they showed how good they really are. I think they're going to be a good team, but let's pump the brakes on the defense a little bit at the moment, and let's watch out for Washington State to make some big plays this week. Oregon can still be the team to come out of the Pac-12 this year. I still think they have a very, very strong chance of going 6-0 and then 7-0. But I'm cautiously optimistic about the Ducks because the defense has raised a few questions for me moving forward. So Jaden DeLaura against the Ducks this week, pay attention to him.
Brady, was there? I know when I think I said something. Was there something you wanted to add like a few minutes ago, or are you good to go?
No, move on from that. It was talking about ASU, and we're off that. So it's no
All
big
right,
deal.
so we're going to be getting to your guys' takeaways. So again, if you guys have anything you want to hear our thoughts on, any again games, coaches, players, topics, anything like that, you guys can leave a donation in the super chat. Like this one comes from our man Stexton92. And this is actually kind of something that we're going to talk about later, but this actually we can talk about now because it's outside the top 12. So we're not talking about teams that necessarily are going to be making the college football playoff, but these are teams which I kind of like that are going to be making the New Year's Six Bowl. So guys, get those rankings up where I can just share with you them right now. But which teams outside the top 12 have the best shot at making a New Year's Six Bowl, and which teams that are currently in the top 12 are most at risk? I'm assuming most at risk means most at risk of falling out. Now I'm making a New Year's Six, but guys, look at those AP top 25s, and what team do you think has the best chance to sneak in, come out of nowhere, and reach a New Year's Six? Had ASU won, I would have said it could be ASU, but unfortunately, their chances are shot. So, guys, who do you got shock on the world and coming into make a New Year's Six?
I'll start kind of where I just left off. I think Oregon's a good team. Again, I'm going to be a little cautious about the defense moving forward. I still think they're good. I just don't think they're dominant. So Oregon, they're sitting at 11th right now. They're a team that I think could move up and move into a New Year's Six. But if we're talking about outside the top 12, I'm going to stick with Oklahoma State. I still think Oklahoma State's a good football team. I still think they have a very, very strong chance. I think they're the most likely team to walk out of the Big 12 as champs. And I'm going to look for USC. I mean, they started very slow against a good Arizona State team, and I don't see another game on USC's schedule that has me worried at this point. Anything can happen in a shortened season with everything going on in 2020. I like SC moving forward. I like Oklahoma State moving forward, and we'll see what happens with Wisconsin. But I think those are some teams that have the best shot of making the New Year's Six that currently aren't in the top 12.
I think making a New Year's Six, I think any of those Big 12 teams are a fairly safe bet. Iowa State, Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, just because somebody's got to win the Big 12. And when somebody wins the Big 12, they'll be there. So if I had to pick one, again, I picked Oklahoma State earlier in the show to win the Big 12, so I'll take Oklahoma State. Inside the Big 12, that's most at risk. Brady, I want you to know I'm not sorry for saying it this week. It's Indiana. I'm not sorry for saying it. I do not think
No. I did Lyle cut out, or is that me?
I think he got it.
Wow, there he is.
no, it was. I think it was me.
Yeah.
No, I just want to tell you, I'm
agree
not
with you.
sorry about it
No, I wouldn't be sorry either.
because
It's something-
you don't want people apologizing, right?
Listen, I'm a rational thinker. I get it. Like, I understand the team's going to plateau. I understand that to end the year, we have both Ohio State and Wisconsin. I get it. Like, it's a tough end of the season.
Yeah.
For me, Lyle brought up Oklahoma State, Iowa State. I think those are really good teams. Texas is always, somehow finding a way to work their way in there. SMU is one of those teams. They're sitting at 7-1. They've played 8 games, more than a lot of, or more or the same as a lot of schools. And, like Blake said a couple times during the show and a few years ago, Shane Buechele is playing some really good football. So SMU could be one of those teams that could find a way to sneak their way into a New Year's Six game, maybe late in the year, depending on how the rest of the college football landscape plays out.
Brady, I think I was late on my Shane Buechele prediction, like I had a few weeks ago for when he played Cincinnati. He had a nice 355 yards and 4 tutties this past weekend, so he's back. So I'm shocked no one said it, guys. I don't know how realistic it is. Give me Coastal Carolina in there. Give me Coastal Carolina in the New Year's Six. I want it.
I thought about it, but can you really have 3 group of 5 teams playing in it? Because you're going to already have Cincinnati. You're already going to have BYU.
No.
You do it. You put them in. You put them all in.
No.
That's because Cincinnati's going to the playoffs, so that's going to be a guarantee right there. I'm kidding on that one, but I think it'd be cool to have Coastal Carolina. Guys, Brett over here says, thoughts on Wisconsin for the remainder of the season? I guess he's assuming they're able to play some games. As of right now, I think they're still scheduled to play Michigan this week, and I don't think the game's been canceled. So we've only seen them one game. They look good. Granted, it was one game. I think it's I heard something where I don't know. Maybe if Brett's a Wisconsin fan, he can back me up on this. Whether or not they're one canceled game away from not even being able to compete for the Big Ten title game, or they've already reached that. So they got to make it through the season clear. But I think if Wisconsin's able to continue to play on a week-to-week basis, I think they're probably going to be the second best team in the Big Ten. Again, sorry, Brady, it's not going to be Indiana, but I think Wisconsin has a chance to be the second best team in the Big Ten should they play out the rest of their season.
I am cautiously optimistic about Scotty. Again, like Blake said, it really depends on if they're playing games. What we saw from them the first game was very promising. And again, like they're supposed to play Michigan this week. If they play Michigan, we'll see what happens. But if we're gonna assume that they're not gonna play a full season at this point, let's just say like that's a very high possibility. So let's just say they're not gonna play the full season. I think they are a team that is going to be very disruptive in the Big Ten without earning a chance to play in the Big Ten title. I think that they can end somebody else's season without playing in the Big Ten title, because again, this is a numbers game at this point. If you're getting games canceled or postponed, or they're just ruled no competition or whatever it is, then it's a numbers game, and they're not going to have the numbers and the win totals to get a chance to play in the conference title. So in that case, they'll be a disruptive team without playing in the championship.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna move on now to the next topic, which kind of relates to what we've been talking about a few times earlier in the show, and it's actually the title of this video. So Brady, if you can get the graph up quickly, because we're just gonna go over it, because I know a lot of people want to hear our thoughts, and I'm just trying to find. Oh, what's up?
Which graph? AP?
Oh, the one of the top 15 teams.
Yeah. Okay. Give me a second.
The one with the top 15 teams. So again, let me see if there's just 50 of these here that I have to go through to see if I can find. Here we go. The title of this video, again, how many teams have a realistic shot of reaching the college football playoff? I know a lot of people have been talking a lot in the comments. So let me take this off right now. So as it stands right now, this is the AP poll top 15. So guys, I want you guys to take a look at this. For the most part, I'm assuming in this season, it's going to come from teams that are really in the top 15. I don't think there's going to be any teams, maybe like an SC if they're able to win out. But I think for the most part, if you're in the top 15 now, these are the teams that have the best chance of potentially reaching the college football playoff. Looking at this top 15, guys, how many of these teams do you think have a legitimate chance of actually being one of the 4 teams selected in the college football playoff?
I would say those top 8 right there of Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, A&M, Florida, Cincy, and BYU. I think those are the teams with a strong, realistic chance at this point. I could go in depth and pick out a few of those teams to say why they will or will not have a chance to make the playoff, but for the sake of time, I'll stay out of that. Oregon, if they went out and if they beat USC in the conference title, I think has a chance. And USC, who's not on this list of the top 15, they're at 18 or 20 or something right now. If USC wins out and then beats Oregon in the conference championship, I think they're up for consideration too. But again, if Oregon gets upset and USC wins out and say they beat Cal or Stanford in the conference championship, that's not it. And I think the same thing goes for Oregon, where if they go to the conference championship and end up beating an ASU or a Utah, I just don't think that's enough to push them over with the shortened schedule. So realistically, I think Oregon and USC each have a chance if they win out and play each other in the title and the winner gets a shot. Other than that, I think it's the top 8.
I'm going to say the top 6 and Oregon. I realistically, when it all comes down to it, when the season really concludes, I just don't see any of these non-Power 5 teams getting in. If you really want me to throw one in there and say which non-Power 5 team has the best chance, it's Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. But I'm realistically, I think it's the top 6 and it's Oregon.
I'm going to go with 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. I'm going to go 7 just to pick a number you guys haven't said yet. I think all 7 of those teams in the top 7 currently are legitimately the best teams in football. We saw a lot from Wisconsin in 1 week, but having that week off and having the canceled week is really going to come back to haunt them. Or 2 weeks, right? Was it 2 games they had canceled, Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think so far they've had 2.
Yeah, so having the 2 games canceled is really going to haunt them. If they only had maybe 1 canceled, then I'd consider throwing them in there too. But I'm going to go top 7. And the one team, we talked about this, I believe, last week on the show, is no one's saying a thing about Texas A&M. And they're sitting there at 5th. They're just sort of coasting. They're just sort of coasting their way through the SEC. They're like, "Hi, how you doing? Keep it moving. How you doing?" Like, we're just gonna go and finish in the top 5 in the rankings right now. So I'm going to go top 7, and for whatever reason, I'm going to say watch out for Texas A&M because you haven't heard about them at all. Just wait until you do.
They just need a convincing win, though. That's the thing. And
I mean, they beat Florida. They beat
Florida. Right, they beat Florida, but that's the thing with both A&M and Florida now. And again, Florida had a big win. But look, I think that those two teams, I think A&M, Florida, Cincinnati, and BYU all need. At this point, I think Cincinnati and BYU, their best shot is obviously winning out. I think that's their only shot, is if they keep winning out and keep those numbers close to what everybody else is doing. But again, I think A&M and Florida both need that convincing win, because if you look at the top 4 of Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, for me, those are the clear-cut 4 all right now. I mean, I think those 4 are the 4 at the end of the season. There's a strong chance. Even if Clemson and Notre Dame play each other in the conference title and one of them loses, I still think those are your 4 right there.
Yeah, before I get to what my thoughts are, going back to our super chat donation from 10-15 minutes ago, I can't pull it up right now because you can only go back so much on the comments, but I think they asked us about Auburn's chances. I mean, Auburn, they're sitting currently at 24. Unfortunately, Bo Nix at the helm. Maybe they can make a push to crack the top 15. I don't think there's going to have to be monumental chaos if Auburn wants to crack the college football playoffs. So unfortunately, I don't think they can get there. Here's how things are going to shape out. And there are some interesting scenarios that can happen. I think Alabama, they're a near lock. If they just win out, even if they lose in the SEC title game, I think we're going to see Bama in it. I think Notre Dame, barring a regular season loss, I think they've locked themselves in because, as Lyles has said many times, they're probably now going to lose to Clemson in the ACC title game, meaning we probably are going to see Notre Dame and Clemson maybe get in. Ohio State, they went out. I think they're going to be in, even if they lose in the Big Ten title game. Here's where things get interesting. And I mentioned this in our group text because I was watching that college football playoff rankings show that was on ESPN an hour before this. And David Pollack, I thought he was kind of crazy, but he brought up a good point. So Texas A&M, they did beat Florida earlier in the season, but it looks like right now Florida is going to be the representative in the SEC title game, likely against Alabama. What happens here, guys, if Texas A&M, if they win out the rest of the way, I mean, depending on how things go with the rest of these, maybe they leapfrog over a Clemson or an Ohio State. If Texas A&M wins out the rest of the way, Alabama wins out the rest of the way, Florida wins out the rest of the way, and Florida knocks off Alabama in the SEC title game. So you have Florida, who just won the SEC. You have Bama, who just lost in the SEC title game. But you have Texas A&M, who beat Florida, but isn't getting a chance to play in the SEC title game. That could be absolute chaos, especially considering there might only be one spot from those 3 SEC teams that can make it into the playoff.
Usually I think that these SEC West teams that don't have to play a conference title game and get in, sometimes I think, that doesn't seem fair to the rest of the college football world, even though when it comes down to the best 4 teams, Alabama is one of the best 4 teams in years where they haven't had to play in that SEC title game. This would be the one year where I feel like an exception's made, because Texas A&M does not play Bama in the regular season. So if Bama goes to the SEC title game,
building the suspense.
Big L.
I feel like in that scenario, you still have to give what?
Oh, you can cut out. Go ahead. Oh no.
Well, Josh, we've lost Brady. We've lost Lyle.
I'm here. I'm just
did I cut
fixing something?
There we go. Lyle, you there?
Did I cut out?
All right. Yeah, let's just move along. Just move along.
Oh, hi, Lyle.
The point is gone at this point.
Again, this is why we need to have 8 teams in the college football playoff, because for this very
reason. Can you guys hear me now?
It would be great to have Cincinnati in there. It would be great to have BYU. I think Lyle's the one that said it. He thinks if there's going to be a group of 5 team, the best bet is probably going to be Cincinnati, just because they play in the conference. They have a convincing wins. Their defense is phenomenal. But for the most part, I think that's really it. Again, Oregon, if they're able to run the table and win the Pac-12. But again, if there's all again, Bama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, Florida, you think these are the ones that have the upper tier. And Oregon, can they get in winning the Pac-12, going undefeated? I don't necessarily think so. I think the Big 12 is done. I don't think the Big 12 has any chance whatsoever. And in regards to the Big 10, I get Wisconsin's at 13. I get Miami's at 9 in the ACC. But even if Miami wins out and they beat, I guess, maybe Notre Dame or Clemson, whoever they play in the big or the ACC title game, does Miami have enough to get in? I don't really know, which is why I think, as I've said this in weeks past, this is going to be, it's only year 6 of the college football playoff. I think this is going to be the most controversial top 4 that we've ever had, because I mean, a lot can happen. Teams can lose, teams can win, but as things look right now, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 teams that get the absolute shaft and don't get a chance to make the college football playoff.
Yep.
So, all right. So there we go, guys. Looking up here, we got a super chat. This comes from Ostex, the dude. Tennessee has been all about restoring smash mouth football since Pruitt has become head coach. Why are they using the shotgun formation for that style? Guys, I don't know what the hell Tennessee has been doing. We know they had that massive win streak where I think it was like 8 or 9. They started off the season with a 2-game win streak. They've now lost 4 in a row. They lost to Arkansas this past week. Their game against Texas A&M got postponed this week. They're probably going to lose that to push it to 5. Their next game's against Auburn. That might push it to 6. So a quick, minute thing all around. What's up with Tennessee? Why are they just sucking all of a sudden?
I think that they're starting to run into some teams that are okay. So number one, I think Tennessee's kind of boring offensively, and I assume that's kind of what you're getting at here. If they want to play some smash mouth football, they're running everything out of the shotgun. The way that I look at this is, I think kind of if you're running ISO formations, or you're kind of, if you're running like double wing, or if you're taking snaps from under center every play, especially in the SEC, I just don't think you're going to have consistent offensive success at this point. And that's just kind of the stage of college football that we're in now. I mean, if you think about it, there were teams that were considered air raid teams back in 2006 and 2005 that were still taking snaps from under center every play. I think it's just how football has changed a little bit. So if they're going to play some more smash mouth football and run the ball like they did with Kamara and like they did with John Kelly a couple years ago, they don't have those athletes there right now. They have the talent to be a good team, but offensively, they just don't have those athletes that are there that are going to run the ball up the middle for 8 yards every single play. I think they need to get a little more dynamic offensively, but that's why they're running shotgun at every play. So maybe if they're a little bit boring, you mix it up a little bit. That's what I've always liked about what the Rams do in the NFL is, like, every other play is either out of the shotgun or under center, and then people are going in motion every play and they're running jet sweeps. So like, even if you don't have a super explosive offense, it's a little bit creative. It's a little more dynamic than other teams. And right now, I assume the point you're getting at here is that Tennessee is just not very creative, and they're kind of boring. And I think that's what's going on with them recently. I had high hopes coming into the season that they'd be a decent team, and it just hasn't worked out.
I will say this really quickly. Somebody once told me about Tennessee playing smash mouth football that they were just a bunch of all-stars. All right, move on.
What I heard
All
too.
right, guys, it's time to get to our sorry, I just got a thing saying that the Thunder and Suns are engaged in a Chris Paul trade, so that's going to be interesting for all of you NFL fans. We're going to get to our 4 stars
NBA, man. Florida's NBA.
where every week we give our 4 stars of the week, who we think the best player. What did I say?
NFL.
Oh, sorry. Hey, it's too hard hosting a show, guys. Come on, it's hard hosting a show. Our 4 stars of the week, where we give it to a player, coach, team, whatever we want to. Whoa, that's too close right there because we lost Lyle. So Brady, you can get the graphic up. You guys can drop a comment in the comments as to who your star of the week is. We're essentially, again, the MVP of the week, who you thought played the best, and we'll get to that. So Josh, since Lyle's gone, why don't we kick it over to you to kick this thing off?
Somebody talked about him last week. I wanted to hold on. Let's see what he would do. Let's go to somebody else. But now I'm ready to hand the star of the week to the man, the myth, the legend, the second coming of Tua. Maybe he'll be better than Tua? Probably not. Taulia Tagovailoa. A fantastic game against Penn State, 18 for 26, nearly 300 yards. He had 3 touchdowns against the Nittany Lions this past week. Had a tough start to his career after losing by nearly 1,000 points to Northwestern, of all teams, who's now 3-0. But he has 700 yards and 6 touchdowns in his last 2 games against first Minnesota and now Penn State, 2 teams that are struggling, that are both winless, but I still think can do some damage in the Big Ten. They're not going to win their division or the conference by any means. But Taulia, very impressive. I'm ready to give it to him now that he's shown a little bit of consistency from week to week. Good for him. Good for Maryland. And I don't know, man. Dirty Terps moving forward. Let's see what they can do because the Big Ten is just outside of Ohio State. The Big Ten is absolutely whack. So who knows what's going to happen in that conference? But good for Talia, good for Maryland, and keep an eye on them moving forward.
Well, since Lyle's not here, I'll do his for him, and he's got Kyron Williams, running back for Notre Dame. You could have gone either way. You could have gone with him, Ian Book, but Kyron Williams, 140 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, beat Clemson. Lyle's talked about Kyron Williams in previous shows about how he's legit. Guys, one thing I want to mention about Notre Dame that I didn't mention earlier, their freshman tight end, I think it's Mike Mayer. Mike Mayer, which they play the Halloween theme song every time he caught a touchdown. This dude is going to be a legitimate tight end. I would have had him because he was making catches left and right. But Kyron Williams, that's Lyle's star of the week. All right, Brady.
They played the Halloween theme song on every third down is what it was, too. I heard it a bunch.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. My star of the week. I said it last week. Hey, do I just keep rolling with Tom Allen until they lose? I'm going to do it, I guess. So I'm going to go Tom Allen and double it up with Michael Penix Jr., the Indiana quarterback. 30 for 50 this week. Had a good running game as well. Had 342 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and the first top 10 ranking since 1969. The first time they've beat a top 10 team since 1987. Tom Allen, man, he's gritty, and I'll play a video clip of him later if we got time in the show from my friends over at the Hoosier Network that they got from a press conference. But Tom Allen and Michael Penix Jr. my co-stars of the week until Indiana loses.
Lyle, we helped you out, and we already shared our thoughts on Kyron Williams. So one thing I want to mention that you didn't hear was the fact that I am completely sold on Mike Mayer, your tight end, that he's going to be a legitimate threat in the years to come. The dude is an absolute stud. So I love him.
Oh, they call him Baby Gronk, but I think they called Pat Fryermuth Baby Gronk too. So we'll see how they battle that out.
All right.
So room for Baby Gronk from now on.
My star of the week is Kyle Trask. Guys, he was the star of the week just at halftime. He threw for 475 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I mean, I could have gone back and crunched the numbers, but I'm fairly certain he had 400 yards and like 4 of the touchdowns at halftime. And then Florida just, took their foot off the gas and was just in cruise control the rest of the way. Kyle Trask, he was fantastic. He was phenomenal. And what a performance by him. So we're going to move on now to our UniWatch, our favorite uniforms of the week. But before we get to that, while Brady gets it loaded up for the next graphic, our man Connor, despite the results, co-stars could have been Malik Wills and Hendon Hooker. God, I want to hear Connor's thoughts in the comments on that ending to that Virginia Tech Liberty game. Liberty Virginia Tech is the only game this century where both starting quarterbacks threw 3+ touchdowns and rushed for over 100 yards, while Hooker rushing for a game high 156. Brady, that's like one of your stat numbers right there, one of your random facts that you're able to find that Connor is able to find. Yeah, for those of you, also sorry, Lyle, that you're currently being blocked right now. For those of you that missed the ending of that Virginia Tech Liberty game, first off, it was a fantastic game. Liberty, don't sleep on them. They actually might be a legitimate team to compete against. Virginia Tech, again, every week it seems like they're letting us down somehow. It was a tie game with I think like 3 or 4 seconds left. Liberty was going for like the 60-yard field goal. Virginia Tech blocks the field goal, houses it for a touchdown, wins the game, and the refs are like, nah, bring that back. Virginia Tech, you guys just called a timeout. Then on the ensuing play, as you can guess, Liberty knocks down the 60-yard field goal, wins the game. So Connor, my man, I send my condolences because I cannot imagine losing a game that way. I mean, I think that's the most brutal way you can lose a game, if you ask me. A blocked field goal, house it for a touchdown, and then the next play he proceeds. It's not like it's like a 30-yarder. It's a 60-yard field goal the guy had to knock down. So an absolutely brutal way to lose. So Brady, are we ready for?
I'm ready for it.
Are we ready for good old UniWatch?
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, I don't have a graphic for that. So
comment off, so you can see. Sorry, Connor, we're dropping your comment off the screen.
There it goes. All right. So Josh, UniWatch, you can take this bad boy away while I make a graphic.
Give me the whiteout uniforms for State, Arizona State against USC. These are fantastic. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with them. And what's really cool is I said this to you guys before the game. In recent years, ASU's white helmets, when they go with the all white, has a white face mask, has the white, the Under Armour, the body armor, the white gloves, the white socks. They mixed it up this year with the maroon face mask and the maroon body armor, maroon gloves, maroon socks. And it's just like, it's just fantastic. And I don't see anything wrong with these uniforms. Who's McCon in the comments who has an ASU whiteout uniform as his photo says ASU always loses in whiteout uniforms. You are absolutely right, but they looked fantastic while they were doing it. So ASU whiteout uniforms, these are some of the best ASU whiteout uniforms I've seen in a while. Last year's at UCLA were very good too.
Okay, so from one Pac-12 school to another, let's head up north. This week on the poll, nominees were App State, Oregon, Texas Tech, or obviously other. 44.3% of the votes, you guys.
Well, Lyle, make sure to share with the people that might not know why you chose Oregon as yours.
So for those who don't know, we post on our Twitter every week. You guys get to decide your favorite jersey of the week. We always give a couple options, and then there's the other comment on our Twitter at the @HHShow_. If you're watching, it's right here on the bottom third. But this week on the poll, you guys chose the Oregon Ducks. And I'm going to be honest, if you guys choose Oregon every week, that's a good take. I think every jersey Oregon throws out. I think it's a great take. Every jersey Oregon throws out is great. And that was the fans' pick this week. I mean, they wore their home. Is it black in this picture, or is it like dark green?
It's a dark green.
Really green with a black stripe on the shoulder.
Okay, so yeah, it's the dark green. They've got the yellow letters and numbers, and then they got the yellow helmets with the silver stripes on the side of it. Like I said, every time Oregon goes out, you got a thumbs up from me on their uniforms. And clearly this week, you guys voted as the fans, same thing.
Wings. Those are called wings, Lyle.
Are they wings? I thought they were just silver lines.
What did you say they were?
Wings. Oh, just like silver lines. I don't know. They're just.
Oh, they're wings. They've always been wings.
They're wings, and then the jerseys that had wings on the shoulders were called winging it. Yeah, I did a whole presentation on it, and I think middle school about the top 10 Oregon jerseys. Yeah,
I hope you failed.
I did. I went with Boise State this week, and I brought them up last week too. These are so clean, black on black on black, and they got the metallic blue sort of ghost logo on the helmet with the orange eye for the Bronco. But I think these are some of the best uniforms I've seen in college football this year. They kind of look like the old Pro Combat when teams used to do the Pro Combat jerseys. So I'm giving mine to Boise State this week.
Yeah, I mean, those ones, when I saw them live, those were absolutely fantastic. But these, I mentioned them in our show last week, and the uniform for Troy was okay, but it's the helmet. It's the helmet that takes it for me. This is just, I mean, again, it reminds me of what Oregon did in the Rose Bowl last year, where it kind of, like when the sun reflected off them and it was kind of like multicolor. It's not like this with the sun, but they got the multicolor where it's black, but there's kind of like a white little fade, something like that. I think these helmets, especially in this photo, they look so cool. They look really awesome. And plus they look cool in the jersey too. But I think this helmet alone, best helmet of the weekend. And just for that, it gives itself one of the best overall uniforms from the past weekend.
So they did their reveal with, for all those Star Wars fans out there, they did the reveal with like the Mandalorian helmet. And I don't know if it was inspired by the Mandalorian or what, but that's what it looks like. And they did the reveal where the dude like took off the helmet and then put this one on. This is sick.
I like it. All right, so those were our uniforms of the week, our uni watch. Those were our faves. Guys, Blake's bets, I'm going to quickly go through this one, and then we'll get to our Q&A for the next 10, 15 minutes or so, and we'll wrap things up with our pick'ems. I went 3-2 this past weekend. We're now 22-15 on the season, so we're having a really good weekend. I'm going back to Vegas this weekend, so these are going to be the games that I'm going to be betting on. So if you have any interest, again, if you want to put some money on these games, I'll be putting money on them as well. I like Cincinnati -27 against East Carolina this week. The Bearcats, they're a legitimate team. Fresno State -10 over Utah State. Utah State, they haven't won a game yet. They just fired their coach. Things are awful there, and you get 10 points. Give me that any day. I like the over in North Carolina Wake Forest of 67. These two teams, they score like crazy. There's some high-scoring teams. I like that one. This one's interesting, depending on how high the line gets. As of now, it's 13. My uncle said it jumped to 16. Boston College against Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins this game, but Notre Dame, they're on the road. Boston College is one of those tricky teams. Boston College, I think it's the red bandana game because they're wearing the red bandana uniforms. and you get 16 points to play with. So I think Boston College, again, not saying they're going to pull off the win, but with 16, if that's what he gets up to, I like that a lot. And finally, I said it earlier on the show, ASU -4. They should have won this past weekend. Cal, they haven't played yet. They might be kind of sloppy. We saw last week both teams look kind of sloppy early on, and I like the Sun Devils -4. All right, guys.
Of all the things, Blake, you have graphics for, you don't put up a graphic of your actual bet.
I know. I really should. I really should. All right, guys. Time to ask us questions in the live chat for the Q&A. Again, we have probably 10, 15 minutes to get to it, or we can just do a little more, and we can actually just make this the quickest pick'ems of all time because we do want to get to a lot of your guys' questions and whatnot. But we're going to go over to sorry, I'm like losing my voice. I don't know what's going on here. We are going to go over to Twitter right now to go to a few quick ones right now. This one comes from at CFB Home, a great college football account on Twitter with 50,000 followers. They want to know which head coaching job is the hardest out of these three: Vanderbilt, Rutgers, or Kansas?
So I saw this question on Twitter, and I think it's a really, really good one. If you start with Rutgers, this is a program that's supposed to be the oldest in college football, or the Rutgers, New Jersey, or whatever is supposed to be the birthplace of college football. I don't know. That's kind of tough. So I think it's only when I talk. I don't understand. I think that's a tough one because you're also in the Big Ten, and I think it's very hard to have success at that program in the Big Ten, but they've been good in the past. Vanderbilt's interesting, especially because you're in a big market, or at least when it comes to the SEC, Nashville's a fairly big market. You've got a pro team, in town? The Titans are in Nashville.
Titans are in downtown Nashville.
So there you go. There's a big team. There's a big NFL pro team right down the street, and that's a team that's had very little success. I'm going to go with Kansas, and the reason why is because Kansas has had some good years in the past, and also this is an athletic department. I mean, think about this. This is a college football program that lives in the shadow of one of the best college basketball programs of all time that plays across the street. And I think that that's something to consider too. And even look at it like Les Miles is one of the best coaches of the last 20 years in college football, and the dude cannot have any success there. And again, and in the Big 12 too, against teams like Oklahoma and Texas every year, I'm going to go with Kansas. I think that's a really tough place to be a head coach right now.
I think of the three, the easiest is Vanderbilt. Again, big city, SEC, there's stuff to pitch. Simply because with Vanderbilt, you have baseball as the primary sport. Maybe that's a recruiting pitch. You go to Kansas, obviously Allen Fieldhouse, Jayhawk basketball, that's huge. I just don't know what you're pitching at Rutgers. Like, they've been so bad for so long. Like Josh talked about, Kansas has had a couple good teams in the past. But with Rutgers, there's just not a whole lot going for them. I think Rutgers is a really tough place to recruit.
Well, I'll bring up a great point there is, what else is there to do at Rutgers to get your attention off of football? Like you said, Kansas has got basketball, Vandy's got baseball, Rutgers has nothing. So I'm going to say Rutgers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Rutgers, at least Kansas. It is Kansas. Vanderbilt, I mean, they do have a bunch of new facilities there, I think, so that hopefully might help them. But yeah, Rutgers, what's your pitch? What's your pitch there? Moving on to some other questions, guys. This one comes from Jack Belcher. This is kind of a fun one. Who would win in a matchup between BYU and Cincinnati? Now, you obviously got Cincinnati with probably one of the best defenses in the country, and you got BYU with Zach Wilson at the helm with a great offense. So those two, that'd be an awesome thing. Like, you two are going to go at it to determine who's going to be, the group of 5 representative in the New Year's Six. But if those two teams played, who do you guys think would come out on top?
Got Cincy because of what you just said. I know BYU has Zach Wilson, but they have not faced a defense that's as good as Cincinnati's yet. So I like Cincinnati. They've got a good offense. They've got a dynamic offense, not super explosive, not like BYU's, but a creative offense and a very good defense. So I like Cincy.
Close game. I would take BYU because for me, it comes down to the quarterback play, and Zach Wilson has just lit the world on fire this year. So I'd say BYU in a really, really close game.
I'm going to go Cincy. I think BYU's a very good team, but they're pretty one-dimensional. All of their offense obviously goes through Zach Wilson, but with Luke Fickell, Jared Dokes, the running back for Cincinnati, and a good staff around them, down there in Cincy. I'm going to go Cincy in this matchup. I like where the mindset is at, though. I like this this hypothetical idea.
Hypotheticals, I love my hypotheticals. Those are what I'm all about. I'm going to ride with my man, Zach Wilson, in the offense. But, guys, Cincinnati's defense is legit. We got one final one over on Twitter. This comes from Joe Burrow for MVP or at RowanY03189957. How about Liberty versus Marshall? I think they're flying under the radar, so it doesn't really kind of ask. But, guys, between Liberty and Marshall, who do you guys think has a better chance of potentially finishing higher in the rankings when the season's all over? I think I know where Josh is going to go on this one.
I don't think you do. I think I really, really like Grant Wells, and it's tough to turn my back on my guy for the second time. Remember, I picked App State a couple weeks ago over Grant Wells, but I'm going to go with Liberty, and the reason why is because they've just been so tough to beat this year. Obviously, they're undefeated. They're a top 25 team for a reason, but also people were giving Syracuse crap a couple weeks ago when they went into Syracuse and convincingly beat an ACC team. But people are realizing now that Liberty's a darn good team, and I think they showed it this week against Virginia Tech because I think they earned the win there too. Crazy ending. Virginia Tech called timeout. You call a timeout, and you get another chance at it if you're Liberty. So I like Liberty. I think they've got a good team.
Yeah, same reason as Josh. I've got Liberty simply because of who they beat.
Dude, Liberty, what they're doing. To quote what I said last year, Hugh Freeze coaching in a hospital bed, looking quite sickly. I'm going to go with Liberty just because Hugh Freeze is at the helm there.
All right, guys, we're moving on to our YouTube questions now. Again, if you have a question, you guys can drop it down in the comments. If you could switch a group of 5 team with a Power 5 team to switch conferences, what teams would you switch?
So we did our conference realignments in the summer, and we switched a lot of teams around. For me, I would really like to see Boise State in either the Big 12 or the Pac-12. But if I'm switching a team in and switching a team out, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put Cincinnati in the Big 10, and I'm going to take out Rutgers. And I think that as an athletic department as a whole, Rutgers can be competitive. But for me, like, if we're just and that's how I did my realignments a while ago, and I took a bunch of different sports into account. If we're just talking football, I think Cincinnati fits in very, very well in the Big 10. So if I'm just going to pick one, I'll kick out Rutgers from the Big 10 and bring in Cincinnati.
I'm gonna stick in the Big 10 too. And if people watched our conference realignment show, there's about 5 teams I'd love to kick out of that conference. But I'm gonna stick with one. I'm gonna kick out Rutgers. I'll add in North Dakota State.
Stanford to the Ivy League.
Yeah,
I know we're bringing a group of 5 team in.
Got to take Stanford and Berkeley.
Yes,
got to take Stanford and Berkeley to the Ivy League.
I think having, I don't know. I think bringing Cincinnati up to the Big 10 would be a fun one. We've talked about that. I think I put that in my conference realignment. But let's go with. Yeah, I'm going to go with Cincinnati up to the Big 10. I don't know who I'd switch them with though.
I'm bringing.
You got to rearrange it.
I'm bringing BYU to the Big 12 so that way they can be the Big 12 representative in the playoff. And Kansas, yeah, you're to the FCS. You're gone. You're in the FCS now. Sorry, Kansas. That's how it plays out. Our man Kevin is back. 7 things, so we got a lot. 1, Malik Willis throws dots. 2, Coastal Carolina at 15. I don't know if he's saying too high or too low on that one. RIP to San Diego State's perfect season. Yeah, Kevin, I bet on San Diego State this week with the money line, and you guys let me down over here playing in Carson, California. Come on. Number 4, fight on. Number 5, BYU after dark. Number 6, Akron is only down by 4 right now. Oh, my God. Akron's down by 4. They didn't win a game last year, so that's massive right there. Number 7, Harbaugh can't find a quarterback. Guys, your number 1 takeaway from these 7 takeaways.
Number 1 takeaway from these 7 takeaways. I'm not gonna jump on the Harbaugh hate right now. I like Joe Milton. He'll figure it out. Throwing dots, that's true too. Coastal Carolina at 15 is a good question mark. If I'm gonna hop on one of these takes, I'll go with the fight on, because why not, right?
There's a couple. There's a couple teams I think that have quarterback problems, and a couple premier teams, but yeah, Michigan's one of them. Harbaugh needs to find a guy. Look, we talked about a couple weeks ago that Joe Milton's looked impressive at times, but a little more consistency from him.
Only one of these is actually a statistic. And I love statistics. And that's RIP SDSU perfect season. They lost, therefore they cannot have a perfect season. Therefore, they will not go undefeated. RIP SDSU perfect season.
There you go, right there. All right, guys. 5th Dynasty Alliance. Should they bring back the Texas A&M rivalry?
Yeah, I think so.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe go back to rivalry week. Put it on that week.
Bring it back. Bring it back. This one's not a question, but our man Michael, the fact that Rutgers has a better record than Penn State is extremely funny. Well, I mean, for the most part, most teams out there have a better record than Penn State. They're 0-3. We'll be talking about Penn State in a little bit in our pick'ems, though.
Hey, don't forget, in the last 8 years, Illinois has less wins than Rutgers. Just saying.
That's that. All right, guys. Noel 2041. Do you think teams like Cincinnati or BYU deserve the 6th spot over a team like Miami?
Yes, I do. I think they've both proven themselves, maybe a little bit more so with Cincinnati, just because I think the offense and defensive numbers and all that, with what they gain per game, with what they score per game, with what they allow per game, I think all of that is comparable with the other top 4 teams in the country. Miami, I think, is solid. I just don't think they are anywhere near the best team in that conference. I think Notre Dame and Clemson are both leagues ahead of them. So I'm going to stick with Cincinnati and BYU right now. I think they're both very exciting to watch, so I'll stick with those two over Miami.
If the question's Miami specifically, yeah, I agree. Cincinnati or BYU should be ahead of them. And a lot of it has to do with Miami probably won't play in the ACC title game. Between that, a huge loss.
I think I think they can. I think it's one of those things where in any year, why not this one? So I'm going to throw one of those 2 teams above them because, they've played some really good football this year. So I'm going to throw either a BYU or Cincinnati over Miami because I think it's the year for it to happen.
Yeah. I just want some of these teams to get respect and show that they can do it on the big stage. All right, guys. Bryce Trask. I messed that up. Bryce Track. No Trask. Track. Who gets 2 teams in the college football playoff, the ACC or the SEC? We talked about it earlier in the show, guys, that it seems like Clemson, Notre Dame, they're both potentially locks. If Florida beats Bama, you would think Bama, Florida. But again, Ohio State, they're likely going to be there. So we can't, unfortunately, get both of these getting 2 teams in. So who's the one that gets it?
I think the ACC. Like you said, Clemson, Notre Dame. I think those 2 teams are both deserving of being in the top 3 in the country right now. I did not think Notre Dame was heading into this last week's game, but look at what they did. Ian Book was fantastic. Notre Dame was really good, and they deservingly beat Clemson. So I'll take the ACC in a landslide.
Yeah, I'll run with the ACC as well. I think, you just look at the rankings and where they're at. 2 of the top 4 teams are ACC already and still. So I'm going to go with the ACC, and who knows? We could get that 3rd matchup of the year in the national championship if we see Bama and Clemson, or see them in the not Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Clemson, or maybe in the playoffs. So I'm going to go ACC.
I mean, it's possible A&M and Bama can get it in the SEC if they're both undefeated. In that scenario, we could see A&M get in even without playing the SEC title game. But I think it's more likely the ACC gets 2 in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because, again, a lot of teams, this is why we need 6. This is why we need 6, guys. Or at least, I want 8, but give me 6. A few more questions, guys. Trevor, Northwestern Big Ten West champs?
Peyton Ramsey, man. Brady, you know all about him. Peyton Ramsey's been really good for Northwestern. I've got some buddies out at Northwestern getting on the Wildcats hype train. So Big Ten West, you never know. I mean, especially with Wisconsin kind of up in the air at this point. Who knows? But I support it. I would be a fan to see Northwestern for the 2nd time in, 4 years, represent the Big Ten West in the conference title game. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Anything could happen.
Why not? Why not?
Give me Northwestern. I mean, they were in a few years ago. Let me have them. All right, guys. Short round. This might be our last question, depending on if there's any other final ones that come in. What superpower could you wake up with tomorrow and be disappointed to have? Mine would be laser eyes. Let me get this right off the bat, guys. I don't want see-through vision. It'd be great and all. It would be fantastic. It would be really good to have. But it would also be really bad to have, if you know what I mean.
I totally agree.
It's selective, I think, Blake. I would assume it'd be selective.
No, I think it's just everywhere
Is it
you go,
always?
you see through it all.
I would not want to know. I would not want to be able to read people's minds. Sometimes I just don't want to know. Plus, I think that I would think less of some people and be like, I wonder what that person's thinking. And then they're like thinking about something really stupid. And then I would just be like, man, you are dumb. And then the rest of my life, I'd walk around and be like, man, Lyle's dumb, isn't he?
Josh, that's just called being on this show every week and listening to all of us talk.
If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with the King Midas story. I would not want everything I touch to turn into gold, because as cool as that would seem for like 5 minutes, that would get really miserable really fast.
I haven't even thought of this. This is a good question. Like, this is one of the better short round questions we've had, because a lot of them are like positive and upbeat, but this is like, what would you be disappointed having as a superpower? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'd be upset with having any superpower. Like, I think I'd just be like, hey, I can, yeah, it's a dumb superpower, but guess what? I have a superpower.
I want the ability to correctly get every bet I make right. I want that to be my superpower.
Predict the
That
future.
would somehow be illegal. And
No, I'm not predicting the future. I just, whatever I do, it happens. Whatever.
All
I
right.
do. So money line plus 5,000. Let me get that. Whoever's in dead last for the Masters at plus 10,000 odds this weekend. Let me get that.
Happy Masters Week, everybody. Happy
Let
Masters
me get
Week.
that.
You see
All right,
John
guys.
Rahm today?
Dude,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
two
that
hole in
was
ones
crazy.
2 days in a row.
That's
All
why.
right,
I get one yesterday, and today is also his birthday. So major
birthday.
props to John Rahm hitting a skipper.
So shout out to everyone in the comments for all your questions. I mean, the comments were flying through. I mean, we have so many people right now that are watching live. So again, if you have a question you would like to have answered on the show, there are 2 ways where you get top priority. Number 1, you can donate in the super chat. Again, it could be $1, a few dollars, however much you'd like to donate. We had people donating $2 today. We had people donating $20 today. People all over. It comes up in a nice shiny color. That way we're able to see it. We can answer your question. Because again, these comments, they're rolling. They're going like crazy. So you can do that. Also, if you follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_, usually a few hours before the show, we tweet out Q&A time. Hit us up with your questions. Usually for the most part, we go over there, answer those questions first. So those are your 2 ways. Again, if you have any questions to get to that you'd like to have us answer, those are your best chances right there. Guys, time to get to the pick'ems. Our leaderboard, Lyle's still hanging on to that top spot. He's got 76 points. Brady, he caught up a little. He came in now. We're tied
Baby.
with 71 points. Josh, you're still
Dude,
left with
cast
67.
my pick'ems to the sun at this point, dude. Like every week, I'm like, you know what? I'm picking UCLA today. UCLA gets killed. Like, come on, man.
Gosh. All right, hold on. Let me just quickly.
I think I had UCLA too, for what it's worth.
It's just, I think this year, even for some of the games that like aren't that, noteworthy that we've been doing, I've been like trying to find a reason, like a good reason to pick a team, and I like overanalyze. I think I'm pulling a Kevin Cash in the World Series where I'm overanalyzing things and trying to like overmanage things. So this week I'm only going to do that a little bit. So we'll see what happens.
All right, guys, we got about 15 or so games to get to, so let's get this bad boy underway. We got Iowa at Minnesota.
This is so weird. 2 teams that are both trying to figure it out. I've got Minnesota.
Minnesota's got a couple of insane playmakers, not just Bateman, but their running back, Ibrahim. Like, through the first couple of games, that guy's lit the world on fire. But Minnesota's been pretty disappointing so far. I'm going to take Minnesota in a close one.
Lyle brought up some really good points, but he ended it with Minnesota's been disappointing, and that reason is why I'm going with Iowa in this game.
Ooh.
Yeah, Iowa, they had a great win this past weekend against Michigan State, but Minnesota, the talent's there. I think they can pull one out. I want to go with the Golden Gophers in that one. Number 9, Miami at Virginia Tech. This is an interesting one, guys, because Virginia Tech is a 3-point favorite over the number 9 ranked Miami Hurricanes. So very interesting there.
We kind of talked about Virginia Tech and Liberty a couple minutes ago, and I think Liberty is actually a pretty decent team this year. Not like Cincinnati or BYU, but I think they're good. They already have 2 ACC wins. Add them to the ACC, like I said on Twitter. But look, like I'm not going to let that loss to Liberty affect my decision going into this week's game. But I'm still picking Miami, so I've got the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, Miami's probably still a little bit more talented on both sides. Another game I think stays close, but I'm taking the Canes.
Yeah, I got Miami on the road in this one, even though, what'd you say, Blake, they're 3-point dogs on the road?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going with Miami.
Vegas, they know what they're doing. They want to get a bunch of people to take Miami +3 so they can all bet. There's something they know that we don't, and that's why they get paid the big bucks. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Virginia Tech in this one to pull off the upset. I mean, is it really an upset when you're favored to win? I don't really know. Number 10, Indiana. Brady, I'll actually let you introduce this game because this may be the last time you can introduce them this high, or next week they could be even higher. I'll give you the honor of doing it this week.
So I'll do this really quickly. I'll introduce this. I'm going to play this quick clip that I brought up earlier. Number 10, Indiana at Michigan State. We've seen the Hoosiers, for whatever reason, play really good football this year. And Tom Allen could be one of the most energetic, entertaining coaches in the country. I don't know if you guys saw this video or the gif of him tackling a player after an interception, but listen to what he had to say the other day about his football energy.
I got some messages from one former player in particular that I did something similar to at Ben Davis, and I got a black eye when I jumped on him after a huge interception, and actually ended up coaching in the state championship game with a black eye because of that, because I caught his cheekbone right in my eye socket. His helmet right in my eye socket, just like I caught monsters on my cheek. And then I've dove on a pile in college, lost my 2 front teeth at Ole Miss. That was a pretty poor decision because it took about 6 to 8 months to have, because one of the teeth that I lost was my already a fake tooth. So that one just disintegrated and that was just replaceable. But the other one was a permanent one. And I had to have a root canal. I had to have a false tooth. I had this false thing up in there it was almost an 8-month process. So that's why I did strategically turn my head to the side when I jumped on Monster, because history taught me that if I catch my teeth with that helmet, the teeth are going to lose.
All right, I'm getting to my pick at Indiana by 20 after that. Indiana by 20.
There's strategy behind celebrating with a player, folks.
Look, I mean,
Go in order, normal. Josh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to see if Brady wanted to go first.
No, I'm hammering Indiana.
Yeah, okay.
By 10,
obviously
that all day. They're going to smash Michigan State.
All day long.
Wow, they are going to smash them.
Even though Michigan State's quarterback has one of the best names in all of college football, Rocky Lombardi.
True.
I'm hammering the Hoosiers.
So, a pure, genuine linguist and fantastic lyricist, as some would say, Big Shaq once said, "Chillin' in the corridor, your dad is 44. I tell a man's not hot." Well, here's 2 problems I have with that. Number 1, man's hot. All right. Man's hot. And that man is Tom Allen and IU. Man's hot. And number 2, he's not 44. He's 50. All right. The big 5-0. I'm rolling with the hottest team in the country. Man's hot. And that's IU, America's team by 14 over Sparty.
Go.
I mean, I hadn't seen that video. I was specifically waiting to see it here on the show. That was awesome. Yeah. The videos I have seen is Tom Allen just gets his whole team just fired up after every game when he runs into the locker room and they're all like, "We love you, coach." And they all just go crazy. And he's going to fire him up again. Plus, let's be real, like Michigan State's pretty bad. I'm taking Indiana.
Also, big shout out to my our friends over at Hoosier Network, one of the IU student media publications run by our good pal Griffin Gonzalez. So Gonzo, appreciate it, buddy.
Yes.
Even though I just totally ripped that video off Twitter and told you I was going to use it.
Yeah, so. I am. Oh, I can't wait to take Indiana -10 this weekend. I cannot wait for that easy money to come my way. All right, guys, moving on now. We got Army at Tulane.
I said that I was going to stop analyzing games, so Army.
Yeah, I got Army on the road.
Go Army, beat Tulane. Isn't that their saying?
Yeah, it's like a fight song.
Yeah. Hey, Army's got a history of beating the people with water, and Tulane's the waves. So I'm going Army.
This is the week either I catch up to Lyle or I just completely fall out of this completely, but I'm taking that chance. I'm going to go with Tulane, as I always do. They're one of those teams I like, or I just take them because their mascot is simply awesome. All right, guys, Wake Forest at North Carolina. This was one of Blake's bets. There's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, that's for sure.
I think people have kind of stopped paying attention to UNC over the past couple of weeks, but they're still a good team. Offense led by Sam Howell. I've got North Carolina.
Yeah, I've got North Carolina too. Their skill players just outmatched Wake Forest. I think they bounce. They need to kind of get their season back on track, and they do right here. So I got UNC.
An underwhelming season thus far for North Carolina, but I think, like Lyle said, they get their things back on track and get in the right direction. I'm going North Carolina.
It's amazing how North Carolina literally just went from being ranked, 5th or 6th, like 2 weeks ago. Now they're completely out of the rankings whatsoever, and it feels like they're just not even a talked about team. Sam Howell, he's going to put up insane numbers again. That's a guy that we just have not heard anything about this year. But North Carolina, they're going to put up 50. Wake Forest, they're going to put up 30. It's going to be a fun one, but I like the Tar Heels. TCU at West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah, I like that West Virginia defense. I'm going to take the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I'm going West Virginia.
I'm not used to Josh giving the shortest answers out of the four of us. It's really throwing me off. But in respect to him and what he said 2 weeks ago, I'm going to go with the Nears.
The Nears.
The Nears in this one. Number 2, Notre Dame. Hey, Lyle, Bama's at 1, Notre Dame's at 2. We might get our rematch this year.
Notre Dame was 1 when that happened.
Maybe it's in your favor then if they're number 2. All right, guys, they're on the road to Boston College. Again, as I mentioned, I believe this is the red bandana game, so take that into account.
It is, and I'll tell you right now, that's my uni watch for next week, unless somebody comes out of left field and then surprises me.
I feel like that should just be the consensus group pick because that's just so
they're the best. And you know what? This year, I think they're better than they were in years past.
They are.
I think they look way better this year. Look, the last time Notre Dame beat the number 1 team in the country, they lost a week later in an upset. And I don't think that happens this time. I like Notre Dame by 14.
That upset was Boston College, too. Look, I think there's no doubt Phil Jurkovic's going to be motivated. This is kind of his revenge game since he never really got a shot at Notre Dame. But, look, I think Notre Dame bounces back fine. I know I got cut off before getting to talk about Kyron Williams. Plain and simple, of all the backs Notre Dame's had in the last 10 years or so, I think he's the most impressive one. He's been great. I think Notre Dame handles him.
I think Notre Dame is winning this one pretty handily. Like Blake said, though, there are certain games where weird things happen, like a Penn State whiteout. Like we've seen crazy things happen like an ASU blackout, salute to service games. The red bandana game is always one of those games you got to look out for. But I think Notre Dame will overcome that and win handily.
Like I said earlier, I like Boston College plus 16. I'm going to go with Notre Dame to win, but this is going to be one of those ones. I wouldn't be shocked if something crazy happens. Colorado at Stanford.
Stanford showed some life early against Oregon. It was like 14-7 at halftime. But they just weren't good enough to hang with Oregon. I'll take the Cardinal in this one. I think it's going to be close, but I've got Stanford.
I'm going to take Colorado on the road. And look, I know they almost blew that huge lead, but I just wasn't that impressed with Stanford, I guess, despite Oregon's slow starts. I'll take Colorado.
I'm going to go with where's my list here? I'm going Stanford at home. I think it's going to be a weird game. It's Pac-12 early season. Things going in a weird direction, but I think Stanford's going to pull this one out.
This just screams one of those games where even if you said, here's $20, you have to watch this game in its entirety, I'd say keep your money. This game just screams just boredom, but I'm going to go with Colorado because I think they might be able to score a ton of points. Number 11, Oregon and Washington State.
Like I said earlier, I think that Oregon's defense, it did not look like it was going to be as dominant as it has been in years past. They lost 3 of their 4 starting defensive backs to opt-outs. And I like Jaden Delores' big playability. I think Washington State keeps this close, at least for a while. I think this is a game that could surprise people. But I'm going to take Washington State. So, if Oregon wins by a touchdown, like I've enjoyed saying these past couple weeks, pump the brakes. Don't freak out about Oregon. I just think that Jaden Delores is good. This is going to be a big test for him. I still like Oregon to get the win.
It really is crazy that Washington State always finds ways to produce these really good college quarterbacks. And we'll see if Rolovich keeps the trend going here with Delora through 1 week. It certainly seems like it's a pretty good possibility. I think he has a good game, but I like Oregon.
Yeah, I like Oregon on the road too. They showed me really good things this last week. One of the most dynamic running back fields in the country, with Travis Dye sitting in there as well, along with CJ Verdell. So they're going to be a good team. Tyler Shucks showed us week 1 that he's able to fill the shoes of Justin Herbert. So I'm going to go with Oregon.
Stanford got shucked this week, and Washington State, they're about to get shucked hard. So I'm going to go with the number 11.
Dude, we need Oregon to play Nebraska. Like Shuck, Cornhusker. It's just like it's perfect.
I like it. All right, guys, we got time for a few more games. Pittsburgh at Georgia Tech.
Pitt by a touchdown. GT's newer offense puts up a fight, but I like Pitt.
Yeah, I'm taking Pitt.
Yeah, Pitt on the road.
Pitt. Number 13, Wisconsin, as of right now, at Michigan.
Is a tough one. I'm going to take Scotty just because they're itching to get back on the field, but I would not be surprised if Harbaugh and the guys come out fired up. But I'm going to take Wisconsin in a close one. It's going to be a boring game. I'll tell you that right now. I'll say this is a classic 13-10 Wisconsin-Michigan game, and I'll take the Badgers.
Michigan just doesn't have it this year. I had a little bit of a feeling about that when we previewed the Big Ten, but Graham Mertz does. So if they play, give me Wisconsin.
Yeah, if Graham Mertz is healthy, if he is prepared, if he is not fatigued after 3 weeks off of football, I'm going to go Wisconsin by at least 2 scores. Michigan isn't not as good as everyone thinks they would be.
It'd be the most Michigan thing ever to win this game by like 20 points.
It would be.
So I really don't know. I'm going to go with Michigan. It's a low spread. I think Wisconsin's favored by 4. Michigan's at home. I don't think it makes much of a difference, but I'm going to go with them because they're due for a win. At least one would think. A battle of the unbeaten, guys. The battle of the unbeatens. Number 23 Northwestern, who I think has won more games this year than they did all of last year, maybe the year prior, at Purdue.
Listen to this real quick before I make my pick. Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, and Minnesota were all ranked in the preseason polls. They are all unranked now. Those 4 teams are also a combined 3-9, while Indiana, Northwestern, and Purdue were all unranked at the start of the season and are a combined 8-0.
Indiana is the best overall football state in the country.
Right now,
combined 12-0.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I don't know, but California's got San Diego State and San Jose State to throw in there too, and apparently
San Diego State lost, Josh.
Yeah, they lost, and they messed up my 3-team parlay on Friday.
I know, but the Spartans are good apparently. So
yeah, Spartans are back.
Pride of the Bay, maybe. I don't know. When it comes to this pick, okay, this is going to be another good one in the Big Ten. I think kind of like a Minnesota, Iowa, but 2 successful teams this season, 2 surprising teams. I like Peyton Ramsey in Northwestern. I was on him a couple years ago at IU. I mentioned that he was going to Northwestern this year, and he's showed out so far. So I like the Cats.
Yeah, I like Northwestern on the road in this one. Stays close, classic Big Ten type of game. I think it's low scoring, but Northwestern.
Yeah, I saw Peyton Ramsey play at IU. He's a good athlete, good quarterback. He's a quick, agile guy, and he's a good decision maker too. And Purdue's missing their best player that we've talked about for weeks on end. That's Rondale Moore, looking more and more like he's going to opt out of the season. Nothing official on that, but we haven't seen him throughout the first few weeks of the year. And I doubt with an illness, and I doubt we see him. He's got senioritis, essentially, is what it is. And I doubt we see him for the remainder of the year. David Bell, great receiver at Purdue, but I'm going to go with Peyton Ramsey and the Northwestern Wildcats.
Illness. I'm not buying in on the Northwestern hype, guys. I like Purdue in this one. All right, guys. UCLA, or actually Utah at UCLA.
So I picked the Bruins last week over Colorado.
We all picked the Bruins.
They gave up 48 points. So sorry, but you're done, UCLA. They made a little bit of a comeback. I think that is partly because, they've got a few athletes on offense and Colorado just isn't that good. But no, I don't think Utah's going to be the team they were last year or the year before, but I've got Utah by 14.
Yeah, I like Utah on this one. I think they just outmatched UCLA.
I like Utah on the road in this one because why, Lyle?
I was waiting for it because why not?
Because why not?
UCLA has the advantage this week. They're playing in front of a stadium they're used to playing in front of with no fans in the stands, so it's not going to hurt them at all. But I'm going to go with Utah big in this one. But again, UCLA, they proved that they were favored by a good amount in the game last week. They came back when they were down like 28-7 or however much they were down by. So UCLA can put up points, but Utah, they're Utah. All right, guys, the worst of the worst featuring Penn State and Nebraska, 2 teams going for their first win. Unfortunately, there are no ties in college football, so someone, unfortunately, has to win this game.
Unfortunately, we've said this before, where it's like I can't believe we have like a Power 5 team in this. I think this is the first time we've ever had 2 Power 5 teams in the worst of the worst, and of all programs, it's Penn State and Nebraska, 2 of the best all-time programs in college football. And something else we talked about at the beginning of the year was with the Big Ten Conference Championship week, everybody in the standings was going to meet up with the person from the other division. So we kind of said how whoever plays that last weekend of the 2 last place teams is quite literally the toilet bowl. Here's the toilet bowl in week 4 of the Big Ten season. And I think it's very hard to imagine Penn State being 0-4. So I've got the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, both these teams have just really disappointed so far throughout the year. I thought both these teams would be a little bit better than this, even though I know I talked about Penn State potentially being not so good. It looks like they're living up to that. But I don't think they go another week without a win. I'm going to take Penn State.
Yeah. Penn State, Sean Clifford's been their quarterback for a few years. He's the guy that's been in the Big Ten. He's been, the highest of highs, and now he's experiencing the lowest of lows. And I said a couple of weeks ago that I think Penn State's one of the best overall programs. Obviously, I think, was it Keegan-Michael Key is their coach? Is that who it is?
Yes.
Is it Peel? Is it Key or Peel?
It's Keegan-Michael Key.
Whoever it is. Penn State's got a great team. They were literally an inch away from winning. Quite literally, but who cares? I'm going to go Penn State on the road. Like Josh said, I can't imagine them starting 0-4.
Yeah, Brady, I need to get myself the Pat McAfee hammer because I'm getting it out right now, and I'm hammering Penn State minus 2.5 is what which they are the last time that I saw. I am hammering it. Penn State, there's no way they go 0-4. There's no chance, right? There's no, who knows? We've stranger things have happened. I'm going to go with Penn State. Our final game of the weekend, guys, as of right now, it's still going on. Cal, the other game, canceled last week because of COVID, so hopefully this game's not in jeopardy. Hopefully it gets played. We go from 9 a.m. to good old 7:30 p.m. again. Pac-12 after dark. All right, guys, Cal, ASU. ASU's a 4-point favorite. What do we like?
It's a must-win for ASU. It's a must-play for ASU. Last Saturday's loss was crushing. It was heartbreaking for ASU. But look, I'm still so excited about this team moving forward. The defense is really good behind Merlin Robertson. Have a lot of faith in Jaden Daniels and the new young dynamic offense that they've got. You guys mentioned the running game being so good this past game against USC. I think the offense gets going for ASU. I think the defense smothers Chase Garbers again if they play. And I've got the Devils by 14.
Yeah, I think ASU is going to bounce back. I know they had a heartbreaking loss on Saturday, but they're just too talented. Cal's okay. Chris Brown's a pretty decent running back, but I like ASU in this one. I think they take care of business.
Blake, I told you a minute ago that I had a shout out for the end of the show, and this is a different one actually that you just you said something that sort of reminded me. You said this game could be in jeopardy, and I just have to bring this up. I'm a super nerd. I love weird stats, so got to give a major shout out. Alex Trebek, man, that hurt. Like it sucked seeing and hearing the loss of Alex Trebek in jeopardy. So enjoy the last 30-something episodes until Ken Jennings or Alex Faust is the new host. Anyways, I think ASU is going to win this game at home. I might just go sit in a parking lot and try to see if I can watch. If any of you guys want to come join me in Arizona, I might just make my way out there.
I'll go.
Hey, we go back to your old apartment with
Tiger.
Bong.
Yeah,
Tiger.
Yeah. Tiger.
There was ASU put out a tweet. It's like, there are no fans at athletic events until 2021, and that does include tailgating. So,
wait, hold on. Wait. It's 2021. Let's go.
All right, cool. Yeah. I like short. You know what? Real quick, I like Short Round's idea. This is. I like that idea.
Being the host.
I like that idea.
Your new
Jeopardy. We're the contestants.
Hey, your new Jeopardy host, Brady Klein. Remember, there are people listening, not watching.
There are people listening.
Yeah, he'll be like, all right, and the survey, or no, that's the wrong game show.
Survey says,
all right, so the epitome is he's just gonna mess up every word.
Dude, Alex Trebek, I did see a video of Alex Trebek calling Chicago Blackhawks highlights from the late 70s.
What?
You mean Kebert Zella?
Kebert Zella. Suck it, Trebek. All right. If I didn't say it, I'm going ASU.
All right, I'm going to go with ASU in this one as well. It's Blake's bets for I think they bounce back. Hopefully they bounce back. It's going to be a good one. But that wraps up this week's very fun, very exciting show of the Harris Highlight Show. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I know I can't speak. We've been talking for this long. I think we hit a record, guys. I'm going to have to go back and see if we hit 200. We might have. I saw it 195, so we might have just hit 200 at some point in the show. We have 100 plus people that are still watching. So again, if you're all watching the show, thank you guys so much for following. Go to our Twitter account at the HH Show _. We might be doing another giveaway of $50 this week, guys. Or if you guys correctly predict the score of the game, we'll be giving out $50, maybe $100, depending on if these guys want to provide some funds in regards to that. But yeah, a fun show, guys. Any parting words before we head out for the week?
I've got one more shout out that I saw earlier on Twitter, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Who's living the best current life in college football? And that is, everyone's saying like, wow, look at IU, look at this and that. But I will say this. I have a photo pulled up here. Is the people that are living the best current life in college football, their names are Ben, Theo, and Mitch Herbstreit.
Yes.
And those are Kirk Herbstreit's dogs. Who, I'm going to move this. I'm going to get rid of that. Who are living the best life right now. This is only, I believe, Ben and Theo because Mitch is a puppy. Way to just block me, Blake.
Sorry, I thought it was a great comment.
Oh, there we go. You're blocked now. The best in all of college football, the best in the world. Love seeing Kirk Herbstreit out on his hikes with his 3 dogs. They are a blast. So I have to give a shout out to our guys, Ben, Theo, and Mitch Herbstreit. I thought you, at least 2 of you would enjoy that. Not
I like
Lon,
the name Mitch for a golden retriever named
Love the name Mitch. He called one of them, I think, Sparky today on his video.
Oh,
I don't know. So maybe it's a nickname. So I'm most definitely tweeting this out and seeing if we can get a little Kirk Herbstreit love.
Going on right now, Clinic. Dan was trying to see what they say for Ohio State, Maryland. Ohio State by 35. Take the over on that one because it's going to hit. All right, guys, that wraps up this week's edition of the Harris Highlight Show. Again, thanks for watching. We got Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff is in the description of this video. You can become Patreon members, help support the show. We're going to be back likely next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern for another awesome show of the Harris Highlight Show. Again, all that information you need is in the description of this video. For Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klain, this has been Blake Harris from Monrovia, California. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to see you all right back here again